Welcome back to Laughing in the Dark, the podcast where I hang out in haunted places with comedians. This is another fixture in our Sunday Minisode series where I talk to you about your ghost stories. For this Minisode, I spoke to Bill from Seattle, Washington about some paranormal roommates that he's learned to live with. Here's the call.
Hello, this is Bill.
Hi, Bill. This is Sara calling from Laughing in the Dark.
Hi, Sara.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good.
So I understand you have a ghost story for me. Is that right?
I do. I've written it out. I'm a writer in my spare time. I'm writing stories about Fremont in Seattle and the center of the universe. So would you like me to read it to you and then we go from there? Or do you
Sure.
piece by piece? How would you? Okay.
No, however you'd like to do it.
Okay. This is called The Ghosts in This Fremont Life. And yes, where I live at the foot of Francis in Fremont, it's haunted. Maybe haunted is too severe and scary a term. How about multi-dimensionally occupied? I can understand why the spirits remain here in the center of the universe. There's music, community, art, expression, and courage here. It kind of started when Aunt Jude told me a few of her experiences as a hospice nurse, or more realistically named, a midwife to the dying. I have no doubt when she has her consult demeanor on that she's quite capable of ushering hundreds of souls to their next life. She lived here for 14 years, departing in 2011 after the death of her two remaining brothers. I followed her and have lived here on Francis for the past 8 years. Jude startled me one night on the phone with the story of grabbing the flailing body of a young man suffering an untimely death. As she held his shoulders from behind, there was an electrical flash. She was standing on a precipice, a cliff. Beyond, she was bathed in the white light and the universe. Just a few days ago, after a manageable dormant period, I was in the living room on the couch watching TV and heard a kerthump sound. The electric circular buffer that I had stored way up in the stairway closet, packed heads up, and a short box was in the hallway in the same position, as if to say, I'm still here. I took it as a sign for introspection about my good roommate behaviors. After first moving in to this one quarter of a fourplex, I first felt a vacuous presence when standing between the kitchen sink and the apartment-sized gas stove. The kitchen is in the rear corner of the studio, ancient by today's standards, single sink with hot and cold. The counters are very low as if to accommodate someone 5 feet tall or less. Standing there evokes a vertical vortex feeling. Laura, my next-door neighbor who moved to Cedar Woolley, said she's always felt a presence when she was in my apartment. She's the one who survived jumping off the Aurora Bridge. Just a few steps away is the Hoffner Fisher Harvey funeral home. One rarely sees funerals there, but at night it's a crematorium transitioning souls separated from their earthly shells. Easy, a friend of mine, while living here, told of meeting a man at a bar. Exchanging addresses, it was determined he lived here before Aunt Jude. Why did you move from that great place, Easy asked him. I had no choice, the man said. I contacted the dead and I had to get out of there for my own sanity and peace of mind. When I finally got my act together and learned to keep a clean and organized kitchen, it was common to have all the cupboards closed, counters clean, and hear the cupboard doors come open and something from the grocery stables fly out and hit the floor. Once a crystal candelabra flipped, came like an arrow towards my head. Juanita, my Thai neighbor from the front, didn't blink an eye when I told her of the multidimensional roommates. The next day, knowingly, she brought me a tied bundle of sage. She instructed me to light it, to burn the smoke, and mark the perimeters of the entire studio with its smoke, all the while conducting my authoritative self, verbalizing with clear expectations for our cohabitation. Enough of this bullshit, I would say. I know you're here. We must just get along. A peaceful coexistence is my goal. Later, I realized I missed the opportunity, sage torch raised in the air, to lead my fellow dark passengers to the front door, down the steps, and with a shooing of my hands, and say, it's time for you to go. Goodbye. I still have the sage torch, and if things ramp up, I'm ready to confront them again. On 2 separate occasions, my music system, with megawatts and speakers from the Goodwill, were signs of tampering a message. With my music played loud, I know the neighbors are kind to tolerate me. To keep it under a riot's pitch, I never turn the volume knob above 40 on the dial. Once while downstairs in the jungle room, and once while watering the garden in the back of the building, I heard music so loud and quickly discovered it was my system making the walls take on a heartbeat thump. Both occasions found the volume I'm dialed up to 70 while I was home alone. These were seminal moments in my adjusting to the realities. Deal with it, Bill. I do. It is like the front row seat with a window on the world. I first visited 3613 Francis when I reunited with Aunt Jude in the early part of the century. You know, it's right behind Cafe Ladro, a funky fourplex, the northeast unit with the white picket fence, garden, red door, community pea gravel driveway. It's just kitty quarter from Nectar Lounge that emits a beat and a melody of bands on the way up or way down the ladder of popularity. Almost nightly, a band's bus takes up a good part of the street while lounge liggers stand in reverie at their musical altar. This is a bohemian setting in Fremont with old hippies, young hipsters, performance artists, the wayward, and the homeless. On any given night, it's a part of Fremont with a pulse. After 8 years, I guess I've acclimated to the rhythm of this place that celebrates, tolerates, and expectorates human expression. I share this 1908 Victorian fourplex. The structure was moved from the route taken when Interstate 5 was built. Like a townhouse quad laying on its side, it was placed on a concrete block foundation with basement floor and main floor each sharing windows. The basement was untouched for 40 years or so. 2 times in 11 months while here, the sewer has backed up in that space at the bottom of the hill, making it a hazmat site requiring men in hazmat suits to be judge and jury for the toxic mold asylum twice removed. Our fourplex is only one of 2 original structures that remain on our block. Single-family homes have been replaced by giving way to density with townhouses, condominiums, and apartment homes. There are more dogs than children and more dog shit left on the parking strips than owners who take responsibility. My neighbors to the front operated the Thai restaurant quite well, and they did it 7 days a week for a dozen years or so. Doug and Sumali are the owners. Doug suffered an untimely death with esophageal cancer and liver failure last summer. I had a chance to sit with him at his sickbed set up in the living room. We talked about the spirits here. He asked me if I had any encounters. He said he kept seeing something present out of the sight of his sight range. Sumali continues to operate the 2 food trucks, while her former restaurant building is now operated by millennials at Hoodies. They promote the bar over any food they might sell. Call it a revival, but their parking lot is now host to axe-throwing competitions. The outward side of the building is a canvas to the graffiti tag war zone fueled by inaction and indifference and spray paint cans that are weapons of destruction. Like the ghosts of Fremont, one never witnesses their acts of territorial expression in daylight or nightlight, but the results are left for the others to interpret. Juanita and her son, Julian, are loyal employees of Doug and Sumali. They now work 6 days a week in another Thai restaurant in Fremont. I share a wall with them and the other wall with a young, sultry social worker, Sara. She doesn't say anything about my ruckus habits, nor do I say anything about hers. Sara, from time to time, with her allergies and sensitive nose, says she picks up odd smells. My red front door with 18 windows is a relic from the past that made us feel more secure. This door is a half light up, and the front stairs are all wood. There's a hazelnut tree with its fruit stolen by the squirrels every time and season. 3 raccoons roam the yard and gardens each night in search of nutrition, and they avoid humans with a nasty, mean glare. One late night, while writing at the computer, and the reflection on the screen was the rest of the living room behind my chair. There was something passing through. In the reflection, something facetiously waving their arms and jumping up measured steps like a pogo stick romp across the room in my rearview mirror. A real-life spirit medium paid a visit recently. After soaking up the place, he matter-of-factly reported that 2 spirit entities called this place home, 1 man and 1 woman. He said one of them, likely the woman, doesn't like me being here, while the other likes me, and because I'm a good for a buck donation to feed their demons or missing items, likely the man is humored by my antics. A while back I had a dream. While sleeping in my bed quarters, I've taken lately to sleeping face down on my stomach. Either I dreamt this or it was performed in real time. I try to get up, lifting my head first, and then my head, and then my shoulders. It feels as if my body is covered completely by a heavy weighted blanket. It weighs enough that I cannot move. I struggle. Keeping my head down, I make repeated attempts to stand. I get up finally on my knees and back out of the bed. In my peripheral vision, I sense another entity. It is behind me. Standing, I turn, and it turns away only faster than me. I turn around, and it does the same no matter which direction I struggle. Frustrated, I try to psych it out and finally face nothing but the entity. It startles me as if to give me a tickle in my belly. The spirit grabs me, and we spin around the room as performing a grand turn on the dance floor. This is in a dark living room. Later, I had trouble sleeping. I think about that dream. I try to make sense of what it means. I remember Aunt June, the hospice nurse. I make a note of the funeral home just a short block away, and a dark of night crematorium. I hear a creak on the floor in the hallway by my bed. I lay still on my stomach with my right shoulder higher. A heavy weight drops on top of my back as if wedged against my right side. I hear a slight giggle, and the pressure and the weight intensifies. Laying still, I gather up the eternal emotion to acknowledge a presence. I await adjudication. But on the second thought, I think maybe they're saying jurisdiction. I don't know. Gladys, my sister-mom, passed away a few months ago after a long journey of stubborn, mean, certifiable, crazy dementia. After 19 days in the emergency room at Tacoma General Hospital, testifying against her in a courtroom before a judge at Western State Hospital, and a 2-month lockdown in a geriatric psych unit and fed drugs to break her spirit, it was a loss and a relief. The funeral home, steps away, handled the arrangements, including her cremation. About this time, while sitting in my living room one evening, 3 framed pictures simultaneously jumped off the wall and onto the floor. That's weird, I say to myself. It must be the neighbor, I think, pounding on the walls with his head against the headboard. An hour or so later, a large, heavy brass ship's portal wall clock on the east wall of the same room falls as if deliberately pushed and lands face down on the couch. Chills run up and down my spine. Hair on my back stands up, and back of my neck stands up, and I estimate if someone had been sitting under that clock, there would have been a major injury to their head below. Is this my imagination playing tricks on me, or my subconscious telling me I've got to lighten my load I've been carrying and put down the crosses I bear? There's a garden, ever-changing, as my north side gets the direct sun, and only in the summer. I accept it as a substitute for regular counseling sessions. It's a little urban oasis that attracts sparrows that nest in the laurels and a murder of crows stationed on the wires with the charge to deliver things to the void while delivering to me clumps of roof moss turds left by the doorway. The patio square of paver stones is my expression and collection of rocks I've gathered, gewgaws made of glass, and artifacts that remain for future archaeologists to interpret life in the 21st century. I can't take all the credit for the garden markers, statues, and things that appear. The statue of Buddha, the little girl with the bird in her arm, are volunteers. I know not from whence they came. I just smile, embrace, and marvel at the creative energy of this place with earthly and otherworldly multidimensional objects. The journey has changed me, and I've changed the journey. And it was just last night, I was watching television, and behind me, one of the large framed pieces fell right down on my head.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah. I put it back up. But it was just, it was about a 24 by 36 framed piece. So just flipped, and it fell down over my head and on the floor. So that's my story.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, well, I mean, there's so much here. First of all, your writing is beautiful. I'll give you that. And your voice is really nice, too. So hearing you read your story was actually really, really nice.
Thank you.
I've never actually had a caller write out their story and then read it to me. So that's kind of a new experience. So that was really cool.
Oh, okay. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But yeah, so it sounds like all 3 of those pictures falling off at the same time. How long ago was that?
Let's see, my mother passed away October 22nd. It would have been probably about Halloween.
This last Halloween?
Yes.
Sorry for your loss, by the way.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I wonder if you were planning on me calling you this morning and then having something fall on you tonight or last night. That's kind of a funny, maybe it's just a coincidence.
It is. And you never know when things will kind of pop up. I have a basement room here, and I don't go down there by myself very often because I really feel a presence down there.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure where all this is coming from.
Yeah, it's hard to. Sometimes it's hard to believe, but it does sound, especially with the sound system going off super loud while you're not even in your apartment.
That was one of my first clues.
Yeah, that's a pretty clear one. Or seeing a reflection.
Yes, that was a good one.
Yeah.
I was up late and I said the thing doing, doing, doing right behind me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Makes it pretty clear. So you think, I was going to ask, the dream that you had where the spirit was like holding you and spinning you around in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
What did the spirit look like once you finally saw it?
You try to think, it was more of the energy than it was an appearance.
Okay.
And I really can't. That was about last summer. It was more an energy force, and it was in the dark, and I couldn't see, and but I knew it was something moving because I could feel the rush of air behind me. You know,
and they're holding your shoulders, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's fascinating. So how long have you lived in this place?
I've lived here, it'll be 9 years coming up this May.
And they've never scared you out of the apartment at all? You've never thought about moving?
No. Like I said, I first felt something in the kitchen when I moved in.
Yeah.
And, no, not to have me just vacate the place. No. I guess, having the sage and going around and saying, look, we got to live here. And, and I think once you come up to the conclusion that there are spirits, there is another side, that it's just kind of, okay, we got to live together. And that's been my attitude towards it. But,
yeah.
I have wondered sometimes, when things go missing, like, are they playing tricks on me or whatever? And then I think, okay, did this really happen, or is it something I imagined? And those are always, and what I tried to present was there was a number of cases where it kind of all adds up.
Yeah. I mean, once you kind of accept that they kind of became your roommates, as you said.
Yes.
I could see if you have something go missing, it's not any different than having like living roommates being like, oh my God, someone took my, and then you find it in your room and you're like, oh, never mind.
Yes.
That's funny.
And I find that there's just a common theme, and it could be me, but if you're going to do something around here and you figure, well, I'll just take one little step or two steps, it usually ends up being 10 different steps. I mean, whatever goes wrong will go wrong.
Interesting.
In the process. Yeah.
So it does seem like they like to mess with you a lot.
I think so. And when the medium was here, he said that because I didn't keep a very clean kitchen, or I didn't keep the kitchen like I did, that's why they were. It was probably a woman who was angry that I was messing up the space.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And it's like most kitchens today have some open concept where they open to a dining room or a living room or great room or something. This is tucked away way back in the little corner, and so you're back there working or making something, and you can't even hear the front door. So it's isolated.
Yeah. And being such a small space, it probably is easy to make it dirty. Like you just leave one dish out and it looks bad.
Well, and then living here also was my first time in my entire life of living by myself. So that took some skills that I had not developed yet.
Yeah.
Doing the laundry and dishes, the things that I've usually shared those activities with someone. So.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so you're not planning on moving at all, and it sounds like you've mostly created a living space with the dead that seems to be working for everybody.
I think so.
Besides occasionally assaulting you with a picture or clock off the wall.
Right. And all of my neighbors have spoken to some presence that they've seen here. In their own separate apartments too? Yes. And,
wow.
And with the funeral home so close, I did have a conversation with the funeral home director, and he was surprised to hear what I told him. So
interesting.
Yeah.
And he's never experienced anything in his funeral home.
Or he was being very diplomatic with me, and so I was, making arrangements with him. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I used to work for about 2 years. I worked in a morgue, and we never had any experiences there either.
Really?
Yeah, but then you think about it and you go, okay, well, if I was a spirit, why would I haunt the morgue?
Right. Why would I go on? And then someone said to me that they're really not here. It's like a cassette tape.
Like a memory imprint.
Plays a loop. Yeah, it's a memory imprint. And that line of thinking really got me to thinking about, particularly souls that might have been left here by my aunt, or that followed her, or from the funeral home. Mm-hmm. But once I got that kind of clear, I was like, wow, there's lots of traffic coming through here.
Yeah, I've heard that theory too about the kind of like the tape playing on loop. And actually, I think that there could be a mix of lots of things. I think that that's possible. I also think it's possible that it seems like some spirits are actually interacting with us.
Yes.
And especially like it sounds like your spirit was like had an emotional response to how you were keeping the kitchen. That's not a memory implant. That's like, that's an actual interaction with you.
Yeah. And this too, there's the man and the woman. That's continually seems to pop up. And I had two mediums actually come in. They both said the same thing.
Interesting.
Feeling that presence here. And it's, like I said, it's not uncommon to be sitting here and all of a sudden the room takes on an uncommon chill. It's like, brr, where did this come from? Or where did that breeze come from?
Yeah.
And you're sitting in the corner of the room. One other aspect, I guess, is this old structure. It's bad for cell phone reception because it's all plaster with metal lath behind it, as opposed to most modern structures have the drywall. So that, which is a better conductor of cell phone signals. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not sure about that because maybe there's some tie to the spirits.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, it seems like I've never had that experience, fortunately, because like for me, when I record my episodes, I take equipment to record and go to the haunted places. But I've heard stories about spirits kind of messing with electronics and having that happen. That hasn't come up for me yet. Thank God. I kind of want to knock on wood. But because it would ruin a whole episode for me if that, happened. But at the same time, I suppose if that did happen, I could go somewhere else and tell the story with the comic. But yeah, I've heard that a lot too. And I haven't experienced that. Although there have been things that I've heard lots of stories about that I finally got a chance to experience since I've started this show. So it's a really cool thing to explore. And it seems like there are so many different avenues that we don't understand about the paranormal. Like even for me, when I first started this, I had my own ideas of what I thought ghosts were. And I had never, like, for example, I had never considered the idea of like a tape playing on loop. Or, I had never considered the idea of spirits that didn't know they were dead and they're just kind of living their lives. And they don't know why you're in their space. That maybe you seem like a spirit to them. Yes.
Or it's like a wall where it's a reverse mirror or something. They're in their same. They're in a different reality, or dimension.
Right.
And just right next door.
Well, and then that brings up another idea of what if these spirits aren't even dead? What if it is another timeline that, that whole theory that like time is like a circle, like it's all existing at once?
Yes.
So it's like, what if these spirits that are in your apartment, they are living people and it's just a different reality or a different time zone. And sometimes for whatever reason, the frequencies get crossed and they might think of you as a spirit in their home, Correct. So weird.
Yeah, that's, and I've tried the Ouija board, but I don't bring it out very often just to see, and I just don't get anything out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, but you know, when I was in high school, there were 4 of us, and we got together, and my gosh, it just scared the pants off us. It was just we had to put it away. You know?
Yeah.
And they say Ouija boards to really keep them away from teenage girls and teenage boys because they seem to attract more spirits or something from that.
Yeah.
Experience.
I've heard that too. I've played with Ouija boards quite a bit, and I mean, I've never really had anything significant come of it, but I have heard amazing stories from other people.
Well, there was 2 couples. My ex-wife was, and we were, you know, silly kids, and we just said, well, how long are we going to live? Well, when are we going to die? And it said, like, one of us 87 or 84. And then it said, watch out for Bill. And mine would, and when it came to mine, it would just go off the board. And it said, and we said, accident in car or something. Well, 2 years after that, one of the other girl, she died in a car wreck.
Oh no!
And, I always made that connection that there was some message, and we none of us, you know, knew the religious aspect of it, but we said, "Who are you? Who are you?" And it said, "I am not Lucifer." And none of us knew what Lucifer was. Well, you know, obviously, the name for the devil. I mean you no harm, something like that. And so that's, you know, that was my experience with it. Before I was like, wow, this, and we put that thing away, and we had 2 people at the board, while the other, a third one would be writing down so that they could free their mind. So we knew it wasn't subconscious, you know, suggestions or whatever that it was a clear filter.
Yeah, yeah. Writing down like the letters, and then you can spell out. Wow, that is wild. But it said, "Watch out for Bill."
Yes. And so, you know, I just kind of blew it off, but it was almost 2 years after that. We were after graduation, and she died in Tacoma at an intersection, and she was 6 months pregnant or something.
Oh no!
Yeah, and so it was a terrible. And it was her house that we were in an older part of Tacoma.
But then I wonder why it said, "Watch out for Bill."
Yeah, accident in car, something to that, like that was the memory that we got from it. So,
wow.
I'm just not sure. But I guess I've grown to accept the fact that, at least in my belief system, there is another side.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Life after we pass this world.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's another clear example of a spirit communicating with you, knowing at least how you perceive the spirit, you know?
Right.
So there's definitely another dimension where some of them are able to communicate with us. I believe some of them are not able to communicate with us because, like you lost your mom recently. Mm-hmm. I lost my dad in 2017 in June. Mm-hmm. And there's been, I mean, I'm sure you've had a little bit of like those dreams that you have with them that are like real, you know, yes. Those I feel like are kind of a communication, but you would think like with the guy with the Ouija board, I tried to talk to my dad on a Ouija board and it wasn't working, you know? And if he was able to do it, I know he would.
Yeah. I remember being really sick a number of years ago, about 1990 or so, and my daughter was camping in Montana, and she called, said, "Are you okay?" She'd had a visit from my stepdad who said, "Go see your dad because he's not well."
Oh.
And that was what came in her dream. So, I mean, she,
I think dreams might be the easiest way for the dead to communicate with us because I've definitely had my dad visit me in dreams. Have you had your mom visit you in dreams?
I haven't. It was her passing was so I mean, I'm still kind of dealing with it.
Of course.
Her dementia was just, she was turned into a real difficult person to be around. And so I'm not, I have had a visit in dreams by angels.
Oh, wow.
That I think, where did that story go? I was dealing with my sexuality back when I was about 46 or 47, and I was married 28 years, and I was just depressed. I had stomach ulcers. I was a wreck, and I wasn't sleeping. And I had a visit in a dream, by an angel telling me that I was okay, and I'd never really thought about that. But I used to travel a lot for my job, and the dream was that I walked into a hotel lobby, and I marveled at the richness and depth of the wood on the walls. I was like, wow, I've never seen wood like that before. And I walk up to the front desk, and I look up, and the wood goes up forever. And then when I'm getting my room key, the front desk clerk hands me the key in a certain way so that the fingers are locked, and they said, wait a minute, you deserve a better room. And then I saw this angel, brilliant gold, blue, silver, behind the desk, and it with its wings outstretched, and it went up that space that went forever. Well, and then I kind of think that's it. But I still remember the vision in the dream. And about 5 years later, I watched that show, Angels in America, and the Emma Thompson character was the angel, and it was the same process that in that series. And then when I went to Central Park in New York City, and I saw that angel statue that's there, it's like, whoa, that's it.
Wow.
So I then read a dream book. What does it mean? That angels come to you either in real time or more likely in a dream to send you a message. And then 10 years after that whole experience, I thought, they were trying to tell me that I was okay, that I wasn't, the basket case that I thought I was, and I was going to do okay. And that was the message. And and I'm telling, okay, there's another side. The angels are there to kind of assist. I get it. I mean, that was my takeaway from that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I think because we don't even know why we have dreams or what they really are, Yes. So it could be a connection to something else.
Yes.
And it sounds like your stepfather was able to communicate with your daughter through a dream. I think that might be the easiest way for spirits to communicate with us so far. But then I do think maybe some of them have spent a long, long time and finally have figured out, I can slam like drawers. If I focus on it in such a way, I can move the physical world and get attention that way. Because the other thing you think about is like when people actually see ghosts or interact with ghosts, why are they always so old? Like we've joked about it on my show, like with other comics, that it's like, well, why are you always seeing like a lady in a white dress and it's like, very dated clothing that you can tell, she's been dead for hundreds of years. Why don't you ever see like a young ghost texting on their phone or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, then maybe part of that is like it takes a long time to practice and be able to interact with between the different realities.
Yes.
Who knows?
And I think the Buddhist philosophy too. I mean, it's an intersection for me. Is that we plan out this life before we get here.
I've heard that. Yeah.
We look down upon humanity like a human freeway, and we pick our mother and our father for what they can teach us, but also what we can teach them.
Yeah.
And then we have to conveniently forget it when we're born, and everything that we play out were the lessons that we wanted to learn while we're in this life.
Yeah.
And, and then you can meet people, and think, God, they're an old soul. They are so wise for being only 14 years old,
right,
or
right.
whatever. And other people think, God, they're 67 and they don't even get it. So it just, to me, it just kind of lays out that there are maybe levels that we all go through in order to reach some destination. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I totally believe that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there were times when I was a kid, my parents were both young and narcissistic, and I remember sometimes at age 9 having to be the adult and thinking, how did I get in with this bunch?
Yeah.
Was my thought way back then.
Yeah, I've definitely. Yeah, I can relate in some ways, and I do think that it is amazing when you meet people, it is like a young soul versus an old soul, that you meet people and you just think, wow, this is it for you. This is as far as you've gotten. This is what you're taking from this. But
level 9, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, it does make you wonder. And I have thought about, I wonder when we die if we won't have that same feeling of deja vu or remembrance, that we'll kind of go back to something and go, oh yeah, I remember this process. This is all part of it.
Yes.
Yes.
But the white light or that point where it transitions and it's okay and we feel good and so on. That's people have reported that in a surgery or an accident or something.
Yeah.
Or they say, it's not your time, go back.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I actually, so I have always been interested in the paranormal and all of that. And my dad was too. I was really, really close to my dad. And when he died, probably for the first few months, I got really, really obsessed with reading about near-death experiences, because I really wanted to know what happened to him. So, ironically, I already had one book about it, or two maybe, and I bought probably 5 or 6 on Amazon. And then when I went through my dad's belongings, going through his house, I found a couple books that he had about near-death experiences, and he had dog-eared some pages and stuff. So that was kind of cool to kind of connect with him in that way and read those. And I had actually told him about a book that I read about near-death experiences. And when I went through his stuff, he had bought it. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. And I actually gave my dad's version of it to my sister, because I was like, well, this is funny because I told Dad about this and he bought it, and now you can read it.
Cool.
But what I liked to do was I read a bunch of books about near-death experiences, and I wanted to see what all of them had in common, what were the common threads, because obviously some of them are written with a bias of towards one religion or another religion.
Right.
Or you never know if someone is embellishing a story to sell a book, that'll obviously come with anything. So I read a whole bunch of them, and a lot of the stuff that I found was that almost everybody felt comfortable and they belonged, in the
process, and in the transition. Yes.
Yeah. And that there is a process, there are levels and different steps that you have to get through, and it's a whole nother life. It really is an afterlife.
Yes. Yeah. And it's to me, I think it's just the ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We all, we're all stardust to a certain degree. And I had the conversation with someone. We were talking about astrology, the different astrology, zodiac signs. Well, that could sort of be, if you thought in terms of that, where the planets were in a particular time of the year, that there would be certain traits allowed, that that might be connected to, let's say, an Aquarius or something.
Right.
That because of just simply the alignment of the planets. I don't know. But that was just a recent.
I mean, I think living in the Pacific Northwest too, people make a huge deal out of astrology and maybe take it farther than I would. But I have thought about, like, well, psychologically, if you are born at, like, in the winter versus in the summer, how does that affect your temperament? Mm-hmm. It would be really interesting to see if they've done any actual studies on that, because I would love to look at that, because I could imagine how that might affect someone's temperament differently with just seasonally.
Sure.
Yeah, or I don't know.
The 9 months before, when they were conceived, what was going on then?
Right.
Their lives, or, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, they've actually shown genetically how, like, different kinds of experiences can actually be imprinted on your genes. Like, people that have gone through the Holocaust, when they reproduced, there's like gene markers that they have based on the stress that they experienced that have actually been able to replicate themselves in future generations. Mm-hmm. So it shows how your experiences in life can actually basically be genetically passed on, and then those affect your temperament. Yes. And it also goes along, I think Carl Jung has a theory on fear and why do we fear spiders and snakes, and that could actually be passed on from ancestors that, like, had to fear spiders and snakes a lot more, or the fear of the dark or whatever it is, because it is survival, but that it can also be passed on. And those genetic markers are now, like, scientific evidence of that idea.
Yes. I just, I've got squirrels and things digging in the yard all the time here. It's a similar thought, but somebody had done the research that it's imprinted in their DNA where the food sources are. So the baby's born, they know where to find the stuff.
So wild.
So, I mean, that's a similar, that's marked in the DNA.
Or like turtles, when they're born on the shore, they know that they have to like do this crazy trip out to the water when they're born. And most of them die on the way there because they get eaten or what have you. It's wild. Yeah. The biology itself is just really, really fascinating and really crazy. And even just, it's funny how religion and science are always at odds with each other. But the more you learn about science, the more it is just awe-inspiring. There has to be something bigger than just us, because it's just incredible.
Right. And we're finding out more and more, you know, we've learned with the Hubble telescope. I mean, as far as the origins of the universe and the age of it and some of those things. Yeah. And religion really, it's more and more, it's getting a smaller role for me in my life, because it just seems like an earthly trapping, you know.
Right. Yeah.
That you know, to grow a religion, all you need is, you know, two factors: someone to fear, or something to fear, and or something to feel better than, or superior to. And once you've got those ingredients, you've got a religion. Right.
Yeah, and the thing is like it's trying to put a basic explanation on something that we don't understand.
Right.
And to me, it's much more enchanting not to understand it and to just wonder about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think for this season, this is the second season of my show. And I think what I'm going to focus a lot more on for these Minisode calls is exactly this, like talking to people about what they truly believe, because none of us knows. And it's just really fascinating to put those together and to say, let's just wonder about this together. Like, you know, because it's fun. It's interesting. Well, thank you so much for... Go ahead.
My pleasure. And you wonderful to talk to and very thought-provoking.
Yes, same to you.
To seeing more or hearing more of your podcast.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Do you have anything that's published that you want me to promote?
I am in the process of publishing a book called 18 Windows, a window on the center of the universe. They're short stories about my living experiences here.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't that your front door with the 18 windows?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the people's stories and just unique stories about it. And I'm very close to getting that published. And then I also have a hobby business. I collect and sell Seattle World's Fair memorabilia from 1962.
Oh, cool.
Because it's a metaphor for the last time this city pulled something off because it was a good idea. So I've got an exhibit up at the coffee shop next door here in Fremont at the Cafe Ladro, and also some more of my artwork on the walls.
Okay, and you think that'll still be up by April, May?
Should be, yes.
Okay. Thanks so much for your call, Bill. It was great hearing your stories. Do you have a ghost story that you want to tell on Laughing in the Dark? Email us at litdarkpodcast@gmail.com or write to us in our Contact Us form on our website, litdarkpodcast.com. We may want to feature you on the show. Thanks so much for listening.